I go into a conference room and, you expect that same capability, right? And sometimes meetings like that are even more high stakes in terms of transcription and summary and all that, because you're in a brainstorming meeting or a big discussion and you're all in person. Those expectations have been set working individually, and they carry those expectations into the meeting room.
Hi, and welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we have some customer stories from Brad Hintze, who's EVP of Global Marketing at Crestron. Brad always has a great perspective on what's going on in the space, and he took us through 3 customer stories and kind of what the commonalities are around their team's journey, their requirements, and what Crestron are bringing to the table for those team's customers. Really great conversation. Thanks very much to Brad for taking the time, and also many thanks to Crestron for being a supporter of Empowering Cloud. Really appreciate all their support. On with the show. Hi everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Exciting one for the start of 2025. We're going to get into some of the Crestron customer stories, and I've got Brad who's putting me to shame on the social media at the moment with his awesome shorts. Hey Brad, how you doing?
Hey, Tom. It's great to talk to you. Yeah, we'll see if we can keep it up. Maybe it's a one-hit wonder going on here.
No, I think you've been doing really well lately. It's nice to see, because you're all over the place. I know you've been recently with the new Experience Center, and it's nice to see what's going on with you guys.
Yeah, it is. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind. The last couple of months I've been in India and Germany and Ireland and in New York City. But I love getting out there. Chicago for Ignite, where we saw each other face to face. So I love getting out there and then sharing kind of those perspectives is always fun.
Awesome. So in the prep for this, we wanted to talk about kind of what you're doing, specifically for Teams customers. I think everybody in our space probably knows the Crestron brand, but there's quite a portfolio that relates like both directly to Teams with the MTRs and the XIO and the one beyond, and then also around that story. So I think you've got some customers kind of to talk about potentially.
Yeah, it wasn't too hard to find some pretty interesting and compelling customers. Today we want to talk about 3 of them. One is a brand we all know, Puma, and it's a great company, as we all know. Fortuna and Entertainment Group. They're a booking group out of Poland. And then the last is Blue Water Financial Services, which is more of a kind of a regional financial services group. And, it's great to see, how many customers have deployed Crestron plus MTR and the way that it's driving their business. So love talking about, what motivated them and how they're addressing the needs of their employees too.
And with those customers, are they kind of Teams customers and they're coming to Crestron, like they start on Teams and then they're like, what can Crestron do? Or are they often Crestron customers who are also going on the Teams journey? Because you've got a big heritage in the space, kind of particularly the enterprise space.
And we do have a big heritage in this space, particularly first around control, and then of course audio video distribution. And then we moved into this UC space. At the same time, we're also doing things like scheduling panels, right? And coincidentally, scheduling panels was an innovation that we worked on really closely with Microsoft to solve their own internal challenges related to meeting room scheduling. And so we developed that with them, I think it was 15 years ago, something along those lines. And so all of that, compounds to this broad set of enterprise solutions. And you can see the way that these companies are picking and mixing and matching these solutions to meet their needs. And what we have found is that there are plenty of customers that knew Crestron already, relied on us for boardrooms and for a lot of their other spaces. And so, then they're like, well, naturally, hey, we're already invested in Crestron. How can we use that with Microsoft Teams? So we see a lot of that, which is great. And that's the reason we invested down this path, to help provide more solutions for our existing customers. We do see other customers too that are brand new to Crestron, being brought in after the fact that they've chosen Teams, and then great, how do we deliver this within a meeting room, and then land on Crestron, which is something we always like as well.
Awesome. And where, is it typically big boardroom scenario? Because I know, again, that tends to be my kind of default thinking on Crestron is like the one beyond multi-camera, press the magic button, the blinds go, the lights go, like the real fancy stuff. But I know in recent years the portfolio's widened considerably.
Yeah, it has. And I think that the Puma example, certainly they had a couple of large boardrooms. They had a training room that was Crestron. And that's obviously a natural place to bring Crestron in because that's such a large environment. You want to make sure that it just works and that it's a really great experience for those walking into that space. And so that's very natural, obviously. But then Puma also took us to many other rooms within their office. And as you can read in the case study, they were using this regional office deployment as a blueprint for future office deployments too. But by bringing Crestron into all of the spaces too, right? Taking Crestron beyond just the boardroom and the training room into the small, medium meeting spaces, that was a priority for the team over at Puma because they wanted one vendor across all those spaces. It makes it easier to manage. Right. There's a level of consistency for the end users, those walking into the space every day. If the touchscreen is the same in the boardroom as it is in the small huddle room, there's a level of comfort. Right. And
familiarity.
Yeah. And so that was hugely valuable for the Puma team, as they were setting out there. So, I think that it's good to see us go beyond that kind of boardroom and add value to these other spaces. But I think as organizations are wrestling with scale and taking these, how do you take teams to many more rooms, solving that problem of, okay, what vendor can help me do that is a critical one.
Yeah, and for those listening and watching, we'll link to these 3 case studies in the show notes as well. So if you want to dig into the detail of what they deployed and how they did it, there's some really good detail in them as well. Yeah,
we have a great team writing these case studies. They're always fun to write.
Well, it's awesome to have. It's interesting, like having customers that are prepared to talk about these things publicly is a real testament to their, kind of success of the project. It's one of my benchmarks when obviously I talk to a lot of vendors. It's like straight away, it's like, can you turn up some customers I can talk to that back you guys? And that's a really good litmus test when it's big brands, especially.
Well, true, and actually on the Blue Foundry one, I actually spoke to the CEO. Myself. This was, I think it was about 18 months ago, maybe slightly longer. And, I love talking to the end customer directly and hearing what motivated them. And it's extra interesting because so often, you and I, we end up speaking to the AV manager, the IT manager, right? The head of IT, VP of IT, but generally always kind of in that IT space. And once in a while, if we're lucky, we get to talk to some of the other department heads. But, to speak with the CEO for this company, right, he chose Crestron and he set the team out on a mission to deliver a really great experience inside of the office, right? Easy to use technology, really advanced in terms of the capabilities that they provide for their employees. That was to get the employees into the office, but also attract and retain really great talent. And for that to be a priority for the CEO in a really explicit way is certainly energizing. We believe that. You and I, we talk about things like this all the time. But here was a real world example of a CEO that was driving a mandate related to these things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just, as we're recording, I recorded with Urban Lazar from Metrgy yesterday. So I think that pod will come out the week before this pod. And that was one of his big 3 things for 25 was like this back to work mandate and making the office experience worth the commute, and how AV and meeting spaces are such an important part of that. Like it can't be the same as at home because you haven't given me a reason to come in. And for the people who are hybrid, making sure that hybrid meeting experience is so strong.
Yep, that's right. Well, I think that, and we've all talked about this ad nauseum, that sometimes you can, in person, you're at an advantage because you're in proximity to so many colleagues. But if the room isn't kitted out properly, then you're actually at a disadvantage. Because, when everybody is remote, everybody has the same representation on the screen. But if you're in the meeting room and there's 2 or 3 of you in the meeting room, unless you have the right technology, you aren't represented in the same way. And so it is important really to lay that out there, and to just create that overall vibe. I think too that some people view these return to office mandates, and look, they're ramping up. We've seen headlines just today, right? Trump in the U.S. was saying, "Hey, government employees, remote work is not optional.
Yeah.
You have to, or it is something you have to come into the office, and you don't have a choice." And I think that some people assume immediately, "Oh, great, we don't have to solve this hybrid work problem," but you do actually. It's actually worse, and because how many businesses, even small and medium enterprises, how many of them have multiple office locations that they need to collaborate with, right? How many of them have outside vendors and or customers that they have to meet with? And everyone has expectations for what you can deliver. So I think that, even as the topics shift from hybrid work to return to office and office mandates, and to a larger extreme, you're still going to have to address these challenges.
And going back to the customers, part of that story is not just the MTR story, but it's things like FlexPods, Air Media. Can you kind of talk us through some of those other solutions that form part of the portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fortuna Group, the group, they have 6,000 employees, and they have a huge variety of sizes in all of their meeting rooms. Within the meeting rooms, if you have MTR as the standard, right, you have Teams Room as the software standard, in that platform that goes in there, and then Flex is the standard for the engine in the hardware. Then you need the right peripherals, though, for the room, and that becomes really important. A boardroom has different AV needs than does a huddle room, for instance. And so that's why we developed a variety of products. So, for instance, FEG, they're using Air Media for wireless presentation and conferencing. It's super easy. You walk in, you plug your laptop in with the Connect adapter, and immediately you're sharing content. And it's such a great experience. We just had a global sales leadership meeting too, and we had 4 or 5 of those adapters around the room, and we would just, hey, I have a point to make. You just plug it in, right? And it was so easy to share content that way. And so they would, FEG mixes Air Media with Flex on top of that. And then in those spaces too, where you want the ability to easily mute a call or you need audio at the table, FlexPods is a really great solution to distribute the audio around the room on the tabletop. So you get great audio, you're closer to it. The microphone picks you up really well, but even more importantly, that ability to adjust the volume or mute and have that in front of a variety of people is super valuable. And that was something that they found was very important as well.
Yeah, being able to place those mics closer to the speakers, like there's some amazing mic technology with ceiling tiles and beamforming on the bars, but you can't get over the physics of closer is better, and that gives you that opportunity.
Well, and increasingly, audio has always been important. We know that from loads and loads of research from all kinds of people, that audio is actually one of the more important things to have solved in a call, even over video. But in a world of Copilot and AI transcription, great audio is even more important, right? Because if Copilot doesn't hear you well and doesn't hear all of the words that you're saying in the diction and all of that clearly, then the transcription won't work really well. And everybody's is starting to rely on these very helpful services, right? And so things like FlexPods, in Mercury Mini is a small form factor right on the table. Really great audio, to ensure that the experience is good.
Yeah, I'm starting to hear that from the customer side for the first time at the tail end of 24, which is like, oh, we've invested seriously in Copilot, like we're in the thousands of seats. That's accelerated our MTR journey. We were on standards based whatever, and now we're like, oh, if we're serious about AI and transcription, we need the rooms to do that, and therefore the MTR journey has become more important.
Oh, absolutely. I've lived it, right? Because, I use Copilot every day, and there are a lot of meetings like, hey, can we transcribe this? But then I go into a conference room, and you expect that same capability, right? And sometimes meetings like that are even more high stakes in terms of transcription and summary and all that, because you're in a brainstorming meeting or a big discussion, and you're all in person. Those expectations have been set working individually, and they carry those expectations into the meeting room, and they have to deliver, right?
Yeah, it's going to get even bigger with the things like the facilitator agent, where it's like doing joint notes and the project planning and the summary. Like I feel like it's interesting. We might even hit a point where if you're doing an all in person meeting, you still want to fire up a Teams room just to get the notes and the minutes, because you're going to miss that as part of the wholeness of your data of what's going on in the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did that last week too. We were meeting on some campaigns and campaign strategy. We were all entirely in person, and I started a Teams call only to do that. Right. And,
good. You're validating. I'm not. My theory's not unfounded. Then that's good to know.
you're out ahead, and it's real, right? It's really true, because that's what I think is so transformative about things like Copilot. It just becomes so naturally ingrained in the way that we get our work done, both individually and as groups. And so you need that technology that can continually evolve and bring those services into the room, right? And I think that's one of those things that Crestron has adhered to for a long time. How do we make it so that we can, through software updates and upgrades, add additional capabilities without forcing someone to rip and replace the hardware that they have in there? And so with Flex, it's Windows based, and you're going to get a lot of these Copilot features in Flex rooms without needing to rip it out, which is fantastic. It helps customers feel comfortable making the investment in Crestron products. The same is true. We've done that with Air Media. When it first launched, Air Media was presentation only. We have added since the ability to do wireless conferencing as well. So you can walk into a room and do BYOM with the peripherals in the room, even in an MTR space, right? With Video Bar 70, our Android bar, then you put an Air Media in front of it, right? And use that as a peripheral. We've also done that with NVX, our AV over IP technology, which FEG uses. I think they said they had a couple hundred different screens around the different campuses, and they used NVX to distribute content easily across all of the screens and manage it, right? And that's something that, when we introduced that back in 2017, 2018, since then, we've had these major milestone releases where we're adding new capabilities to that same hardware platform.
That's awesome. I think this year, last year, 24, we're in 25 now. Last year, you launched the USB extender as well, didn't you? That's another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, we did. Actually, it was just in October at AV over IP week, right? So yeah, the USB-C. Oh, sorry. There's the NVX with USB-C, and then there is the other USB-C extenders. That's right. That was our lead last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So as we look out to kind of 25, Brad, right at the start now, what do you think are the big themes for the customers you're working with and talking to?
Yeah, I think the big things that we're hearing is certainly, you mentioned that the acceleration of the MTR deployments. I think that if you were to look at 23 and 24 as kind of resets post-pandemic, what do we need exactly? Let's go. Now they're settled into what they need, and now it's about accelerating that deployment and really getting that out there. So I think that's one. 2025 too, I think AI is certainly going to drive more meeting room adoption, as we were discussing, right? Those meeting rooms have to just really, really sing and deliver well to enable that AI experience. And I think that related to that too, we'll see beyond the transcription stuff, we'll see new great features added to these solutions leveraging AI, right? So for us specifically, we'll continue to add new capabilities to Automate VX, our intelligent video platform, and our One Beyond cameras. Specifically within visual AI, that's the intelligent video AI that we have built into it. We'll add new capabilities. One thing that we'll be releasing is our facial direction stuff. I don't know if we've talked about this publicly too much.
It's all right. You can wish. It's just a few hundred friends on the podcast, so you can share some hints if you want.
No big deal, right? But it's super exciting. The ability for the AI to choose the best camera angle based on where you're looking, right? And you can only get that when you're using a multi-camera system that's built for this AI era, right? And built around leveraging AI, where a lot of other platforms are built around presets, right? And very complicated sorts of presets and very sophisticated. That way, Automate VX was built for AI and computer vision from the ground up, right? Well before the world was totally enamored with ChatGPT, that team was working diligently about how do you use computer vision and intelligent video to deliver a fantastic multi-camera video experience. And so we'll continue to see new enhancements with that as well.
I'm really excited about that space because it's a chance, multi-camera is a chance for the OEMs to differentiate and innovate around those things like AI and direction. And again, I'm fortunate to get a lot of demos, and there are definitely meaningful differences. That all those experiences sound the same on paper when you get in the room and get the experience. And critically, you get the remote experience, which I know your team will do, like demos for people where they'll sit in the room, and actually you want the remote end experience to get a feel for how impressive that is.
I do, which is not always like we just spend so much money building out this beautiful, spectacular place in New York. And then we bring them in there. It's like, well, actually, the best experience is to see it from the other end.
I've only seen one OEM do it. It was Shaw, actually, in one of their UK offices, where they're like, look at all this stuff. Now go and sit in that end office, and we'll do the audio demo in the fancy room. And it's like, yeah, you do need to have the remote experience.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So, yeah, I think a lot of continued innovation related to that. Which I think that 2025 will be another great year for the growth of these collaboration technologies.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the pod. Really great to get your perspective, and I'll see you a few weeks from this pod in ISE. So no doubt we'll have some stuff to talk about there, I expect.
Yes, we will. And it's always great to speak with you, Tom, and looking forward to hanging in person.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brad.
Thank you.